everyone. Welcome to another episode. We have the amazing Andy Smith on today.
Well, Andy is one of those great artists who work for Marvel and DC, where he's worked on X-Men and many other titles, and also a lot of independents. But like a lot of artists who were unhappy with the big two, he quit to work on his own material. And lately he's been killing it with his own title, KOR-DRATH the Barbarian. And this is for people who like Conan the Barbarian. It's very much in that mode, and it certainly is good. And I would recommend it. And Andy is an artist who can cover a wide range of styles. He's also published his own title, First Man, which is a superhero saga set in the present day. And when you look at that, you can see, well, there's no wonder this guy worked for Marvel and DC, because he was born to draw superheroes. And Andy has also published 2 books on how to draw superheroes.
There you go.
What are the names of those books, Andy?
Drawing Dynamic Comics came out in 2000. And then the second one was, God, I'm trying to remember the name because it's a longer name. Drawing American Manga Super-heroes, because at the time,
Right.
That was still pretty popular in style wise and stuff. Not as much anymore, but at the time that came out, which was 2007, maybe something like that.
Well, I should think people would be interested in that right now, seeing as how manga is outselling corporate comics like 10 to 1.
Yeah,
That's true. But I didn't publish them. Watson Guptill did. And the first one made it through 7 or 8 printings.
Wow.
And now it's out of print. And actually, I got the rights back to it. So if I ever, like next year, technically is the 25th anniversary. So,
oh, cool.
If I want to put it out again and expand it, I could. And then even the second one, I think I have the rights back to that too, but that only went through 1 printing. So yeah, I mean, if they were, if Watson Guptill was up on it, I don't know how much they are in regards to like how well manga is doing now and stuff. They might go, maybe we should re-release this. But
do you have copies?
No, I have a couple of Drawing the first one, Drawing Dynamic Comics. I have a few of those. I don't have any, but just one of the other one.
The manga one, was that drawn? Was that color or black and white?
Oh no, both books were full color.
Yeah. I mean, I figured just because of the timing, and that's what was hot at that time. But yeah.
No, I mean, I can see where you're coming from, because manga is generally black and white, but with the how-to book industry,
right?
Unless it's like a book on pen and ink technique,
right?
They want to do as much full color because they can charge more and stuff. Yeah, so it was full color, but in the inking section of that book, I talked about different inking styles and such, because there are different inking styles, just like here with their stuff too.
If you do have the option to release it yourself, I probably would.
Yeah, I just have to look into it. Like I said, next year's the 25th anniversary of Drawing Dynamic Comics. It came out in June of 2020. And, like 3 years ago, I was totally like, oh yeah, I should do a crowdfund for it. And, obviously add material to it. Since the 25th. But, I don't know. I just don't, because it's such a big book. It's 144 pages now, the way it came out. If I added material to it, it would be at least 30 pages or so. So whatever print wise, let's just round it up to 200 pages. I mean, that's not a cheap thing to print, and it's full color. And I'm just like, I just don't know if there's a market for a crowdfund for a how-to book, because it's so different, know. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's been some out there, but
How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way must have sold tens of thousands of copies.
Oh, that thing's still out. It's in its 40. Okay, so the last time I looked at the indicia, the little copyright crap.
Yeah,
it's over 40 printings. I mean, that one you can still go to a brick and mortar, obviously on Amazon and stuff, but you can still go to a brick and mortar bookstore. And while the other titles, for instance, like mine, have rotated out, that one's still there.
Oh yeah, it's such a collectible. I mean, I think half or less of the people actually buying it for, just memories or collectability. From when I've seen other people buy it and stuff, and when I've asked them, it's like, oh, you're interested in drawing? It's like, not really, but
I agree. I think it's the classic aspect of it.
Yeah.
I think other art, like I own 3 copies. Now I've got a hardcover with a dust jacket that's beat the crap that I've had forever.
Does it end differently in everyone?
No, no. But I will tell you. So then I've got the dust jacket one. I've got a soft cover that I got, I don't know, sometime in the past 20 years, just because I wanted a soft cover. And then I don't know if they have this store by you guys, but there's a store out here called Five Below, where everything in the store is $5 or less. Okay. So I was in there with my daughter a couple years ago, and on a table kind of in between aisles where they have books laid out, they had a copy of it, but it's the exact same book, except the cover, instead of being white, was like a light blue. And I was like, you know what? $5, I'll get it. And I don't care. It's the exact same book. It's a soft cover.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Were you specifically asked to do those drawing books, or was that something that you kind of initiated?
No, I initiated it back in, so it came out in 2000. I started it in 98. And honestly, it's funny, in 98, I broke into the business in 91. So, 1998, I've been in the business for a whole 7 years. And, we just moved to Florida the year before. And I was just looking for another avenue of something to do to, besides comics, to, make some money, get paid.
Right.
So at the time, and, at the time, if you went to a bookstore, and this is, the internet was new, so there wasn't a lot like there is now. So you go to a bookstore, and honestly, besides How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, there were maybe just 1 or 2 other books.
Yeah.
But they weren't like dedicated to just comics like the Marvel Way was. They might have had a section on it.
Right.
So I just thought, why not pitch this to a publisher? So, one of the reasons I also went to the bookstore was I didn't know what publisher to pitch it to. So I went to the How to Draw section or art section, and I noticed that like 80% of the books were published through Watson Guptill, for how to paint, how to watercolor, you name it. So I had a notepad with me because, there were no smartphones yet.
Yeah. And
I wrote down their mailing address. And I also noticed there was one person kind of in the majority of the books I looked at who was the editor. So I was like, okay, I'll write her name down. And the other thing I did too was I asked at the information desk, do you have any books on how to write a book proposal? And they're like, yeah. So they pointed me in the right direction. And I didn't want to buy the book because I'm like, it's a one and done type thing. You read it once and now you're done. Yeah. So I just went through the table of contents and kind of wrote down bullet points of what I needed in a book proposal. And then I just went home and wrote up a book proposal, and then took like 5 or 6 of my published comics, wrote a cover letter, threw it in a priority envelope, and, mailed it up. Yeah. And I remember my wife asking, so when do you think you'll hear something? And I looked at her and I kind of laughed and I said, probably never. I said, these guys probably get proposals all the time. It's probably going to go into somebody's desk. If it even gets to the editor I sent it to, she probably has an assistant that'll go on their desk. I said, I don't know. I said, honestly, I'm not expecting anything. Well, and this is God's honest truth. 2 days later, because this is when priority mail meant 2 days. So this was from Florida to New York. So 2 days later, I'm at home working. My phone rings. There's no caller ID or anything. I pick it up. I'm just like, hello. And, it's a woman. And she goes, this is so-and-so from Watson Guptill. If you've ever watched my live streams, I always joke about my memory is just crap. It didn't even
need the hat.
He needs the hat.
I need the hat.
He needs my Silverline hat.
I do, because she literally introduced herself and said, from Watson Guptill. 2 days later, I didn't even connect. I thought it was a solicitor. So I wasn't rude, But my tone kind of changed to, yeah, because that's what I do with solicitor. I mean, I don't answer them anymore, but back then I would just go, hello. Oh, it's a solicitor. And I would just go, yeah. So I said, yeah. And she goes, yeah, we got your book proposal. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I go, oh, yeah. And she goes, I said, oh, that's great. Because I was like, oh my God. And she goes, yeah, we want to publish it. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm just like fumbling because this is the 2 days since I mailed it. And I was like, okay, where do we go from here? And she goes, well, these are the basic terms for, a first time, we'll get you out of contract with a deadline, blah, 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 whatever. I was like, okay. And the deadline was a year. The advance for it was nothing to live off of. Put it this way, if I had no other work to do and I just wrote the book, I think it only took me probably a month, maybe 6 weeks to do the whole thing, even with the art.
Yeah.
Then the advance was fine. But, spreading it out over the course of the year, it's definitely like, yeah, I got to keep, doing comic books and stuff. I checked in like once a month with them and stuff, but I basically, I turned it in on time, but it was basically a year later. Then, they took, that was like August 99. And then they took that time from then to it came out in June the following year. So,
do you know how many?
And it did great. Sold? I mean, to me, it sounds low when you hear 7, 8 printings, but it was, I don't know, 40, 50,000 maybe.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
But that's over the course of years. That wasn't right out of the gate. Out of the gate, in the first printing, it probably did 20 something out of the gate. Like I remember when it came out, I would go to bookstores and see multiple copies in bookstores. And then towards the end, because I would always check when I went into a bookstore. And then, near the end, it was like one copy in a store. And then it might be if I checked like, 3 different stores in town. Remember, there was Borders back then as well. So the big ones, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, Borders, it might be like, oh, 1 out of 3 has it. And then it wasn't in any. And then Amazon got, and I guess early mid 2000s, Amazon really started picking up. So obviously it was on Amazon.
Right.
And I tell people now, if they go buy it, I know you can get it on Amazon. I'm pretty sure you can only get it used because it's out of print.
Right.
But used, it goes for like $5. So honestly, I tell people, I'm like, if you don't care what condition it's in, just go get one from Amazon that has some of the pages, dog-eared and stuff that was like a library copy. Yeah. And, pay $5 and $5 for shipping and boom.
Did you always want to be a comic book illustrator?
Oh yeah. Ever since when I first started drawing as a kid, and I would think it's probably this way with any creative type thing. I drew as a kid and I always say that every kid draws because it's kind of like walking. You crawl, you walk, you run. And I think with kids, what do you get them? You give them crayons and stuff to occupy their time. The difference is for artists and stuff, we want to keep doing it, even though we're introduced to other things. Like even back then, I had Atari. I had that crappy Atari with asteroids and Pong. I just didn't get hooked on it. I want to draw, Yeah. Whereas my daughter, who I use as an example, when she was 2 or 3, she drew and she colored and whatever. And in elementary school, she kind of was into it. But then she got other interests and that was that. And for me, I just kept doing it. And I saw cartoons on, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and Super Friends. And it was like, oh. Yeah. And then I discovered comic books. And that was it. Like seeing cartoons of superheroes, I was like, oh, that's so cool. But I never thought like, well, I want to do that. And I didn't even know how those were made. I don't know. It just never hit me. But when I discovered comic books and, saw credits and stuff and obviously knew somebody had to draw the stuff, I was like, oh, you can get paid to do that. I want to do this because it's tangible. You hold it. You're not just seeing it on a screen.
That's how I became a writer.
Yeah. And like I said, I think from the writing side and, you can clarify or not, you just have that creative bug and you enjoy writing. at a young age and creating stories. And it's something, same thing, I think. There might be other stuff out there like video games or whatever, but you're just like, in my free time, I like to do this.
Yeah. Mike was there when they invented chess, and he didn't get hooked on
Sure.
that. He's like, I want to tell stories. So he went in the cave and started
drawing on the wall. And that's where
That's
comics came from.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
I suck at chess. So even though I do enjoy playing it, I think the longest I ever played it on like a daily basis is when I was working at CrossGen in Florida.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We all had to be, living there. We all had our own, obviously desks with the fake partition walls, cubicles.
Right.
But there were 4 cubicles and like a square, and in the center of the square was a little conference table, like 4 foot long, 2 foot wide conference table with 4 chairs. And Jeff Johnson, for instance, and Bart Sears and then some other guys floated through, shared the cubicle. So, to take a break from drawing or whatever, we'd play chess. It was fun until I was the guy that always lost. And then I was like, well, this just isn't that fun anymore. Other people would come in and play. And I can remember games that would go 45 minutes or so. You know, I think mine were an average of like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is also fine because that's about as much attention as I could give to it. So,
because I actually did 1 or 2 tours of CrossGen. My kids were actually going to school in Oldsmar, so I actually got to.
No way.
Yeah, I was going, so I got to go, and yeah, Oldsmar is technically where CrossGen was. It wasn't in Tampa or like, I mean,
no. So we probably met.
Yeah, we probably did.
And you had hair probably.
I had long hair back then because I was in a band. So
see, if I saw the picture of you then, I might go, oh yeah. But I did not, and I did not have this either, I don't think. So
I made what's his face? Brandon
Peterson.
I made him feel bad because I was because there was some sort of mix up with the lady who was supposed to schedule things and somebody else, and then I guess she was going to be gone, so then the other person didn't know that there was a group coming, and Brandon was like, I'm not sure if you guys are supposed to. He was really careful and gentle and everything. When the person came that was supposed to do the tour for us, I said Brandon had yelled at us. He like turned red and stuff, and I'm like, dude, I'm totally kidding. It was like Brandon was like so sweet, and wasn't that much later when I actually saw him at a comic store. He was like literally buying like probably $250 worth of comics and graphic novels and things, and they wouldn't give him a discount. And
really,
and they knew who he was, and I was like, he's a really hot artist and like cover artist. I'm like, anybody who's buying like a couple $100 worth of stuff from you, you should probably give a discount no matter who they are. It really ticked me off, and of course made me feel bad for teasing him when we did the CrossGen thing. And it's hard to find online if there are like any good photos of like inside CrossGen at that time, because it kind of reminded me almost of like the Enterprise or something, because like the lights were low. At least when we went, the lights were low, and they had lights.
No, they were,
and they had lights on the areas where the I don't know what you call them, huddles, groups, or whatever. And they had. I did think it was a cool idea to have like a lot of the writers and artists and stuff kind of on the different books kind of huddled together so they could discuss things.
I liked it a lot. I mean, just real quick on the photo aspect. It doesn't surprise me. I have a couple photos from when I was working. I'm looking to see if there's one close by. I used to have one close by of my area and stuff. But I would imagine if it was still around because of the internet and everything, there'd probably be a lot more. But I liked it. I mean, honestly, I wish it succeeded.
Yeah.
To the point that it was still around and I was still working there, and and everything, because I love the setup. I'm a 9-to-5 type guy anyhow. In regards to, I didn't mind. I mean, we were technically supposed to get there by 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then anytime after Bracey stay till 5, leave. We had 24-hour access. I got there generally around 7:30, 8 o'clock. And, usually 5:30 I'd book out, or I'd wait until my work was done,
Yeah.
There were guys like Jimmy Chung was a night owl. So it got to a point with Jimmy where he'd come in around, I don't know, 2:00. But I mean, he'd be there till 2 a.m.
I love his art, by the way. I mean,
So do I.
amazing.
Yeah. He's fantastic. But so no, I liked it. The only thing I didn't like was when it started out, the lights weren't low. It was because all the colorists
Yeah.
were like, no, we need to have the lights low for our monitors, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all of us were like, that is such BS. Your monitors are backlit.
Yeah.
You don't need to have your lights low. It's bright in here. I color stuff. My colors look, you guys, and honestly, every one of them, if you just talk to them, their preference, even if they were at home, would be to work in a low light condition.
Right.
So it's like, no, you don't need it that way. But you guys suckered, and I love them all. But I'm just saying they got their way, and I couldn't stand it because
they should have been in a back room or something. They should have had their own section or their own room to work.
Well, that's what we were. At one point we did talk about it, like because there was a room that when the company first started, this room had like 2 foosball tables in it and stuff. It was like a rec room,
right?
But then, and there was more space other than that. But then as the company expanded, that did become like an office for a couple people, not writers or creators, but just other staff or whatever. But I do remember at one point, some of us were talking like, because there were only, maybe at the most 6 colorists at one time in house, one for every book. And then one that was kind of bouncing around, kind of like helping here or doing a inventory filling issue, whatever.
Right.
And we were like, that room would fit all 6 of them. Why don't we just put them in there and they can have all the freaking lights off, and then only have you walk in and you only see these glows.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine that was working there actually quit because he could not take it with the lights off. That was the reason he quit.
Yeah.
What was he doing?
He was an inker.
Yeah.
Why don't they just have spotlights over the tables?
Well, I mean, we had our desk lamps, but it's just not like if I turn every light in here and just use my desk lamp, I can still tell it's really dark.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I need to have the whole.
It's not dark on your desk.
No, but it's still dark all around me, and I hate that. So,
I like it.
Like right now, this room is shaped like a shoebox, right? A rectangle. Right in the middle, there's an overhead light, and then basically on each end, there's a ceiling fan with lights. I have one right now.
Yeah,
and I've got big windows in here, and it's sunny as hell out.
How many like pencilers and inkers were still doing stuff on tables at that point? I mean, most of them.
You mean traditional compared to digital?
Yeah.
Oh, everybody. There was no digital back then. Yeah, no, there was nobody. I mean, Brandon, because he was art director and stuff as well.
Right.
And I think he had the Cintiq, that you draw on digitally in his office.
Right.
But that was because he could do color stuff and whatnot.
Right.
But every single penciler and inker in the building was working traditional. There was no one working digitally back then.
Oh, were writers working in the building?
Yeah, because there wasn't one writer per book. Mike, as you know, you can write multiple books. So, Chuck wrote 2 or 3. Ron wrote 2 or 3. Tony Bedard was writing a few. Barbara was as well. When the company first started and there were 5 books, there were only the 5 books. Yeah, there were only the 2 writers, Ron and Barbara, when the company first started.
Right.
And she was writing 2. It was only going to be 4 books out of the gate. So they each wrote 2. And then like 6 months in is when Bart started and I started. So obviously that's a 5th book, and Ron wrote that one. Or no, she did write more than that. But basically, as books got added, I think the writers were only supposed to do a couple a month. So it was basically, obviously, an artist would do 1, but the writers were supposed to do 2. So they
Right.
basically could, I mean, I don't know how long they actually took of it, but basically, so they, could take 2 weeks to write each book. So yeah, they worked in there though. I mean, at the most, it was Barbara, Ron, Chuck, Tony Bedard, and Mark Waid. And there was a little overlap between Chuck and Waid, and then Waid was gone. So then it was just the 4, if I remember right.
I know obviously you're familiar with crowdfunding and all that stuff. Now, do you think there's any room to, even if it's not an official company, but to do kind of like a small shared universe or something in the crowdfunding market with like some writers and artists uniting?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think if, for instance, what Jeff Johns, and is he the
Yeah.
only writer? You know what I'm talking about at Image?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
Jeff, and then I know the artists more, so like Brian Hitch and Jason Fabok and Gary Frank and whatever. And forgive me if I'm missing anybody, but I'm sure we all know Image, creator owned. You get, it's a flat fee per book. I also know certain people get, certain creators will get paid up front. I'm sure those guys fall into that category.
Yeah.
I don't know for a fact. I'm just assuming they do.
Yeah.
But I also think that if that group of people said, let's just crowdfund this stuff, they'd probably be doing better than what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Even though I know some of the titles have gone to second prints and stuff, I just think they'd be doing better. I mean, well, look at Billy. Billy crowdfund She, and now he's getting the stuff from a few years back in Diamond and in the stores. And I think it's fine if you wait. I mean, as long as obviously if you crowdfund it first, as long as the backers are taken care of first, in my mind, you could once it's fulfilled, in my mind, 2 months later, you could get it into a store, because at that point, the backers have already got, they should be taken care of first.
Did you start at Marvel and then go anywhere else, or did you?
I started at DC, actually.
Oh, you started at DC.
Yep.
What was your first book?
It was an issue. So I was in my senior year at the Kubert School. It was like around March. School graduated in May, so I only had a couple months to go. But at this point, Bart took me up to DC with him a couple times when he was turning pages in, so I could show my stuff around. Well, I was talking to Mike Carlin, and Mike was sharing an office with Dan Raspler, and I can still envision the office setup. You walked in the door, and Mike's desk was like right there, and then it was like to your left, kind of like an L shape. Well, this way was Dan's desk, and Mike, I already met Mike a trip up before, and he was like, he gave me pointers and stuff. So the next trip up, I went and talked to him, and he was like, I think you're ready. I just honestly don't have anything. And he's like, hey, Dan, do you want to take a look at this guy's stuff? Because I didn't talk to him the first time. Yeah. And so Dan looked at it and offered me this Suicide Squad inventory job. And I said, yeah. I said, I can definitely work on it while I'm doing school stuff. I got 2 months, but I'll make it work. And he goes, no, because that's why it's an inventory job. There's no deadline. It's one of those jobs where we just get it done, put it in a drawer. If the book looks like it's going to ship late, we open the drawer, send yours or whoever's to the printer. Nice. He goes, so I want you to finish school and not slack on that. Let's stay in touch. And I'll make sure you have a script in your hand when you graduate. I was like, okay. So we stayed in touch, and he did. I had a script in my hand when I moved back to Maryland and moved back in with my parents after graduating to start drawing. I worked at DC after that for probably another, that was 91. I started at Marvel sometime in 92. I just don't remember exactly when, but I worked at DC for, if not a year, almost a year. I want to say at least a year before I started working at Marvel. My first regular thing at DC was Justice League Quarterly, which was an 80-page anthology book.
Andy Smith, like that name, like I feel like I saw that related to Justice League.
Yep. So I did Justice League Quarterly for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So for 5 issues. Wow. With the Global Guardians, and then during that, because those were only like 12 pages, I think, maybe 8 to 12. and that wasn't, enough. So I was lucky, and I got to do the first Green Lantern annual, which, for the new Green Lantern that came out a few years before.
Right.
So I did that, and that was 56 pages.
Wow.
Tell
What's
us
that?
about the Idaho Potato Commission.
Oh, yeah. So the Idaho Potato Commission, I do advertising stuff as well, and I don't do a ton. I'm not like I know Dan Lawless basically left comics and has been doing that type of stuff for a living.
Right.
I never knew how to get into it full time, so I created a website obviously when the internet first started, and in Orlando, a local company hired me to do covers for their catalogs, and this was all business to business, so it was nothing that like the public would see. And they sold firearms, knives, things like that.
Ooh, I'd love one of those catalogs.
They might be on my website. I think it was called RSR. But basically, each catalog had a different theme. So, like 1 month, it was like a Tarzan theme. 1 month, it was a Western. 1 month, it was because the catalog came out, and it was thin. They were thin catalogs. They weren't like J.C. Penney catalogs.
Yeah.
1 month, the catalog came out during July 4th. So it was like make up a Captain America type superhero for a patriotic thing, whatever. So that was my first foray into outside comic stuff. So I put those on my site. Then I did a cover for a workout book for Bally's Total Fitness in town. And I got back about probably 14 years ago or so. I got a email from, it was an ad agency, but the ad agency was hired by the Idaho Potato Commission, which Idaho potatoes, I mean, I see those commercials here in North Carolina, the big red truck.
Yeah.
And at the time back then, it was, we like your stuff. We're doing this ad campaign where we're having 4 artists each do 2 faux comic book covers. We'll give you the idea. This is what we're paying. Is this something you want to do? And I was like, yeah, and I mean, honestly, the pay was great, compared to what I was getting for a comic book cover, which, at the time, not the actual amount, but covers and comics then were rate and a half. So it was whatever your page rate was plus half, because it was a cover. And I was making like 4 or 5 times that for just this one for the ad agency.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And now, granted, this cover was full color. I think they even had me do the logo and stuff as well. But still, the pay was great for it.
Nice.
So they gave me the 2 ideas. One was Western. The other was like a Doctor Strange type character. And I did them. And I was like, sweet, that was fun. Put those on my website as soon as they tell me I can. Nice. So a year later, I get an email from the same guy. And he, asked if I had time to talk. And I'm like, sure. And it was very nice because he said, we're doing the campaign again, but now we want to do actual pages, story pages.
Right.
And we're going to do like, I don't know, I think it was maybe 6 of them, not sequential. Each page was a one-off by itself.
Right.
And we're going to do we want to do an Indiana Jones type character, except he's a clerk, a store produce clerk in a grocery store, whatever. They wrote the scripts. But the compliment part of it was, he goes, would you have time to do all 6? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, because honestly, we realized last year after we got your 2 that the other 6 just didn't hold a candle to what you did.
Nice.
And I saw them. I don't remember any of the artists' names, but I can tell you this: none of them worked. If they worked in comics, they didn't work like Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, mainstream at all.
Right.
And the guy was just like, your stuff was just so heads and tails above the rest that we'd like to just have you do all of them if you can. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. Because once again, the pay was just, pencils, inks, colors, letters. I did it all on each page. The campaign actually grew from doing this, grocery store clerk Indiana Jones character, which I think was maybe a couple years, to taking their 4, I guess, lead sales guys that each sales guy targeted a different part of the country, quadrant of the country,
Right.
and turning those 4 real guys into superheroes with powers and stuff. So which was way more fun because of what I do. Who knew?
Right.
So we have comic book conventions, which I'm sure if you go up to an ordinary person and tell them that, they're like, really?
Yeah.
Well, they have food conventions.
Yeah.
And Idaho Potato had a big 20 by 20 booth. They took the art I did and used it for graphics on the booth. They created bobbleheads of each of these dudes, featuring my art that they gave out. They had 1 year, and they sent me pictures. They had 1 year guys in big foam costumes, muscle costumes, with these big heads of each of the actual dudes on, walking around the booth and stuff. If there was one time that I kicked myself for not being able to do it, and I honestly didn't have the time.
Yeah.
A local store here called Harris Teeter, they're kind of like what Publix is in Florida, right?
Yeah.
And so Harris Teeter, a guy from there contacted me and wanted to do an 8-page promo comic for the store. And I was literally, I was too busy. I just could not do it. So I referred a buddy of mine to do it. And he did it. And they did it for like 2 years. And I've got one of each of the comics because I was like, I got to get one of these.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't get it from the store. I got it from him. And then every now and then I might see it at a convention in like $1 box and I'll just pick one up. But I was kind of like, damn it, this would have been so fun.
I did a series of comics for Popeye's Chicken.
Oh,
no way!
Nice.
Yeah, I'll be happy to send you guys copies if you want.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
What does it smell like?
What was the theme?
What was the theme? The theme was how great Popeye's Chicken was, but I created a cast of original characters who get into mild scrapes, Scooby-Doo type scrapes, and then at the end they always celebrate with Popeye's Chicken. So
was it drawn like cartoonier since it was that type of script, or?
Lee Oakes was the artist. He's a great artist. Just go to leeoakes.com. So the art was really good, but Lee lived in Europe for years and he learned to draw mostly from the European perspective. So his comic book art, while it's certainly superhero relatable, it's different. It's different than American art. You can see it. It just looks European.
You guys know Death Wish Coffee? Have you heard of them?
Yes. Yeah. I don't buy it because of the name. I mean, I'm scared of it.
It's super caffeine, I'll tell you that. But they put out a promo comic, and it was Vikings, and Rick Leonardi drew it. Ron Mars wrote it. Joe Jusko did a cover for it. I kind of think more companies should try to do stuff like that because, depending on the company, but it would be really out of the box, I think, compared to what a lot of advertising is. And I think it would catch somebody's eye.
Even McDonald's did it recently with the manga stuff. It was like almost like a 4-page manga on the bags. I didn't see that. They only did it for like a month, but they had like one page on one side and another there, and then you could read it, and all the different, and they had like the different McDonald's characters, except they called them. They turned the W upside down. It was very like fun, and I was like, oh my gosh, people collecting McDonald's toys and stuff, they're collecting these freaking bags, and a lot of the stuff, except for Mike's stupid Florida Man comic, is more serious. I tease. It is a very hilarious comic. It can help us feed our families and also fund other things.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I'll block that out when I'll put one of those nice little blurred. I'll censor it later. So I guess we should be talking about KOR-DRATH before we run out of time. This is your how did this come to be?
KOR-DRATH came to be because after doing 2 volumes of First Man, I just wanted to change up. And honestly, the second volume of First Man did double what the first one did, so it wasn't like, oh no, it did work. Right. I just was like, I think it was like 2.5 years on that, because I mean, it takes a while to do this stuff. And I want to do something different and just kind of shake up the box, I guess. And I thought, well, what's something I'm going to enjoy drawing that's totally different? Because I mean, there's many things that are totally different. I could have done,
Right.
Something in the real world with real people, and that would have been totally different. But I didn't even want to do that. So my buddy Dennis Turner and I were driving to a convention in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So it's a good 4-hour drive. And I was telling him that, I said, First Man's coming to an end, as in, I'll be fulfilling it in a couple of weeks. And I've been thinking about what I want to do next. And I kind of pitched to him if he wanted to do something like this, because I knew I wanted to do a barbarian. And I knew there had to be a hot chick. Those are the two things I knew I wanted to do because of what I want to draw. Other than that, I was pretty wide open, and Dennis loves fantasy world stuff. Yeah. He loves doing world building. He's a huge Dungeons & Dragons guy all the way back to the very first edition of the book, or the first edition of Dungeons & Dragons in the 80s. He's played every one. He has copious amounts of that stuff. He reads fantasy novels. He's written short stories, just loves that stuff.
Yeah.
So
I should mention that KOR-DRATH is X-rated.
No, I'd say that's R.
NC-17?
I go R.
R. Do you want me? I'm not...
But I can tell you the difference between R and X going by visuals and movies. And that would fall into the classification of R-rated, like, what was that stupid book that all the chicks were reading there for a while?
50 Shades of Grey.
That's right. Yeah, that falls into the 50 Shades, so that's R-rated. I've done X-rated stuff because I did do work for Penthouse. Big difference.
So,
but anyhow, so I don't want to do straight up Conan type barbarian, where everybody's wearing clothes that are pretty much look like they're rags and stuff. They just kind of, whatever, put together. And what I mean by that is, Adriana, if you just look at her with no reference of anything else, she could almost pop up in a superhero book. Yeah. And then, we kind of fleshed out about different tribes and stuff. And because there's these different tribes that inhabit this part of the world, the Shattered Reach is what we call the part of the world they inhabit. Each tribe has their own sensibility about it, and like KOR-DRATH's tribe is nomadic. So they live in tents, so they can pick up and go. Her tribe lives in actual, wood and stone buildings. So they're stationary. Even in regards to, his tribe wears, he wears a loincloth, leather straps, fur, stuff like that. Her tribe, like she has, can incorporate, types of metal or whatever into the costumes or their outfits and whatnot. So even that aspect is different as well, and her tribe also deals with magic and stuff. And she's a sorceress. His tribe has magic in regards to the red line tattoo that they all have, but not all of them can access it,
Right.
Yeah, it's not a mutant thing, but it is kind of like, I guess you could say it is almost an age thing, like having to earn it or work up towards it and stuff. And then that tattoo can kind of enhance him in a way when it comes to like strength and stuff. He's not casting spells or anything. There it is.
Hey, do you want to run through this real quick for us?
Sure. Can I play the trailer real quick?
Yeah.
An ancient evil awakened to slaughter his family. A mythical quest was revealed. Treacherous perils await. Lovers, bound by destiny. Darkness gathers as a new game begins. One man's rage will shape worlds. KOR-DRATH, The Awakening. Only on Indiegogo. Back it now!
So, KOR-DRATH is not only a 64-page graphic novel, it is also a role-playing game. So one of the cool things about it is one of the tiers is an actual game module based on 5th edition rules. And we style it in the style of what the old D&D modules look like. This is the second one. So if you didn't get the first one, you can get it as part of this campaign as an add-on. It's a fun role-playing game. It's a totally different story that Dennis wrote. So even if you just want to read a different KOR-DRATH story, the main cover is by myself and Dan Lawless. And, this book is really a good mix of Conan, Game of Thrones, and Dungeons and Dragons, and the aspects of things we were trying to mix together and put in it. We've got preview pages up so you can see them. We didn't letter these because we don't want to give anything away, but you can go to KOR-DRATH.com, and the link is actually at the top of this page, and you can see more about the story and read the first 11 pages of the first book if you didn't get that one, which is also a part of this campaign. There's multiple covers to choose from. I did a homage cover, homaging Conan #2, just like I homage Conan #1 for the first book. Bud Root, who is known for Cave Woman drawing fantastic ladies, contributed a variant cover like he did with the first book. Another cool thing is, as an add-on, is I'm putting out a book of just my pencil layouts since I'm inking the stuff myself. Yeah. So if you want to see like a peek behind the curtain, you can get the layouts. For the roleplay gamers, we're actually doing a KOR-DRATH figure. The standard roleplay size is 2-inch, but we're also doing a 3-inch and 5-inch figure. And then for this new campaign, we're doing a collector box, which you can buy by itself. Or if you're a collector that wants everything, you can get the Awakening big box, which is all 5 covers. And then one of the books is going to be just in black and white with all the text so you can read it, but then you can just see the black and white. You'll get the game module, the Adriana trading card, and of course the collector box, which is mailed inside another box so it doesn't get messed up. And then if anybody missed the first campaign, the big box gets you everything from the first campaign, which is like 6 covers. It gets you the artist edition, which is the oversized hardcover featuring high-res scans of all my art. And it really does look like you're holding the original art. The first game module, all the stretch goals from the first campaign, and everything for the Awakening as well. So
go to Indiegogo and support it. And also go to KOR-DRATH.com.
Andy, where can people find you on social media?
AndySmithArt.com, at Andy Smith Art on Twitter, X, whatever. Same with Instagram. Pretty much Facebook is Andy Smith Cartoonist because art was taken by somebody already. YouTube, Andy Smith Art, Andy Smith Comic Book Artist.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.